Go on.
But I've been actually trying to think about bird projects, like people that do projects with birds.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. There's a really awesome, I guess the kind of go-to bird I've noticed for many artists has been various pigeons.
It's the pigeon. It's
Yeah.
definitely the pigeon.
Yeah, pigeons sort of, I mean, maybe there's some kind of kinship there, the artist and the pigeon.
I think it's probably because it's just the most common thing.
Matt Ager, do you see yourself as more of a pigeon or a seagull? Talk about being an artist, the pressure to perform and what that performance looks like.
I think one of the massive realizations that I've just like had in this time is like what a realization or sort of a question that I've kind of continually asked myself is like, what part of this do you enjoy the most? And I think like that seems to be.
And when you say this, you mean like
art making?
Yeah. Okay.
Not like life.
Oh.
I mean, maybe life. But just like, I don't know. So fortunate in many ways to just like even have a studio or be in a studio and be able to make work and to be able to do this thing and how when I say fortunate, I suppose I've engineered my life in this way, but I've also, you know, I don't know. I think I've had like really fortunate breaks in education or residencies or funding or whatever, you know, like things have happened in a way that have like allowed me to sustain this for like nearly 15 years now. And I think like, yeah, maybe that's what do I want to kind of think about in terms of the longevity of this and like how you focus on like what you do to focus on those things and what type of artist do you want to be. And, you know, I think going to the kind of college I went to, it increased a kind of certain competitivity, which I really feel like I got caught up in it in a way that I felt really not bad about, but I just feel like actually it just did no one any favors. And I think like, you know, actually you stop when in those sorts of environments, I think you stop thinking about what actually makes you tick and what makes you happy. And somehow there's like that need or that thirst to do something which maybe isn't actually really what you want. And maybe you want something quite simple, you know, like we're talking about simple mechanisms, simple gestures, simple structures, sculptures. Is like, actually the thing that I really want to do is have a very simple, I kind of want like, I want that to translate in my life, which I think is really nice. Sure.
Well, I mean, and yeah, also seems to materialize, you know, physically in sculptural form.
Yeah, but I think like, where do you start with that? It's like, what makes you tick? Like, I love making stuff. I simply really enjoy making stuff. And like, I don't know. I've often thought about the longevity of the kick from each thing you do, like, and the longevity of the kick that you get from making a good piece of work versus the kick that you get from a show or selling work or being written about, or what the acceptance from others is. Because in this way, it's like it's not a, you know, this isn't structured in a way whereby you have affirmation from your boss that you've been told you're doing a good job. Like,
most of the time I'm told I'm doing a bad job.
Oh, Mike. You know, there's a certain amount of, well, there's a huge amount of like self involved in that whole transaction. You're like, I have to give myself all these things. Or you invite someone to the studio and they're like, oh, I like this. And you're like, cool, one person likes it. You know, like, how do you how do you manifest, like, how do you not even manifest that, but like, how do you continue, like, what are your coping strategies for like continuing to make the best work that you can make, I think. And like, those become really apparent when the whole of the world shuts down and there's no other like job that sort of funds the practice. That dissipates because you're self-employed and you haven't got much support, or they've basically closed down, or they've lost their business, and you're there like, well, okay, so, you know, am I willing to like work stacking shelves in a supermarket, or am I going to like be privileged enough to like write a grant application? Like, there are loads of like class and financial kind of I don't know how to even put it. Like, I think that, yeah, I don't know. You know, there's like social help and unemployment, but like, there's unemployment if you're not able to apply for like an arts funding position. You know, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of had a conversation with a friend of mine who, there's a thing called universal credit here, and that basically means that you're it's like job seekers allowance, whatever you call it in, I don't know what you call it in America, but you know, should you go on job seekers allowance so that you can write an arts council grant, or so that you can write a grant to the Pollock Krasner? Like, yeah. I don't know. Not that I think that it's always fairly distributed, but there's just like, there's a whole kind of.
Well, I mean, you know, that's one of the things I think that we were talking about earlier, and I find kind of fascinating, is those also seem like moments where being an artist is a valid vocation, where we don't really, at least for visual artists, we don't really have that. And I mean, I know you're well aware of that.
Do you mean you don't have what?
Well, you know, for instance, if I'm not selling art, which I'm not selling art, you know, I can't, there's not a support system in the US outside of residencies or academia. And, you know, I think this is why you have a lot of disgruntled academics, as well as, you know, 1,000 people applying to residencies.
Yeah, I think the residencies is like the equivalent of the academy where I studied.
Yeah.
In the US, like the sort of, I think there's a lot of applicants.
So all that to say, that kind of points back to your original statement, is like, how do you assess value? Like, if the thing you do serves no like monetary purpose out there in the world, you know, why do it?
Well, I suppose.
You know, so hold on, I have this question. Sorry, I have this question that I used to always pose to students, and it's, how do you make a living? And the question has nothing to do with money. You know, people ask you how you make a living, you say, well, I do A, B, and C. But if that question wasn't a question about how you finance, you know, whatever, how you go about paying rent and buying groceries and paying off debt. But, you know, what is the thing that keeps you from killing yourself or something? I mean, which is, you know, Camus' kind of.
Yeah, but I think like the valid question is like, unless you have, no, not even unless you have. I think the valid question is about, is intrinsically about a certain amount of money. And that doesn't make me some sort of wild capitalist. It's just like, how do I rent this studio? Like, I need money to rent this studio. It's not that expensive. I'm actually fortunate enough to be in a subsidized space, which is like, when I say subsidized, it's like a charity that run it. And there are some structures in the UK where there are some charities which run art studios, and they're art charities, and they're not so expensive, but the rent goes up every year, and like I still got to pay for this. I got a rent reduction of half whilst this was going on, which is okay, really good. I'm absolutely grateful for that. But at the same time, like if I had no money, how would I mean, I wouldn't be here. Like I wouldn't be able to like have this situation. So I think that like as much as like there's a reason why there's like artists, or there's people that go to art school that then end up doing trend forecasting or entrepreneurial like creative management at certain like corporate companies, like fashion brands, whatever, blah blah blah. It's like there's a reason why they do that. Is because they're taught to think in a particular way, maybe for 3 years, right? Like I think that it is time to like acknowledge, and actually, you know, there needs to be like a total discredit. Then there needs to be sort of like a bit of an overhaul, I think, in terms of how one understands the artist and their day job. Like, you know, in America, maybe it is different, but you know, like 90%, more than 90% of artists I know have to have a day job. But I think it's interesting to think about how you do that for the long haul. How do you do that for a long period of time where you don't want to be that age 50 artist working as a technician in a gallery, or you don't want to be working in a, I don't know, whatever, coffee shop or library or whatever it might be, because that gives you the freedom. It's like, when will selling your labor not cut it because you want to have a family, or your priorities change, or you want to buy a flat or a house or an apartment, whatever. It's like, I think that priorities just change for people, and there should be just very, you know, I feel like there's a huge conversation around that. Because yeah, like ultimately it's very challenging to make money out of art. Like to have a career out of selling your own work is hugely challenging.